A few more changes to make in our main function as we initialize GLOT library and setting up our parameters. We're going to add multi-sample parameter, and it helps achieving full screen anti-aliasing by averaging pixel colors on the edges of polygons. And for this to take effect, we also have to enable multi-sampling. So these are new settings for init display mode. So I'm just going to replace the old parameters with the new ones. They look like this. And enable multi-sample. I can put it together where we enable depth test, so we can just add enabling multi-sample right here. Alright, so I'm just going to align these parentheses, and also we can increase the window size to some sort of proportional dimensions that correspond to a square or aspect 1 type of view. So let's use 1024 by 1024. We can do this. Okay, so that would be our window size. I want to make sure that I can compile it. So clicking build and quick test, Control F5. So this is the new window size, and we still have our object. And the aspect rate to start with is the height and width of this window is currently square. So the object is kept proportional because of this initial aspect, but later on we'll have to change the aspect to reflect the window height and width. So right now, if we begin to resize, you can see that proportions become distorted. Basically the object is stretched, so we're going to fix it later on. Next part, we're going to add keyboard events. In a typical video game, the WSD keys allow the user to move around. So internally this is achieved by translating the coordinates of the scene along X or Z axis, which means that our camera view transformation matrix is no longer going to stay an identity matrix. It will actually allow translations in 3D space. So we're going to start with keyboard down. I'm going to locate it in my code right here. So this function takes in the character, the one that was pressed, as well as the X and Y position of the mouse where the key was pressed. And because these are 2D coordinates, they're always corresponding to the pixels inside our window. To implement some basic key controls, we can start with the switch that basically selects the key and makes a switch on different ASCII codes. And we can use the escape key to say GLOT leave main loop, and escape key will instantly close the window and exit the application. So that's the way to do this. In addition to this, our WSAD combination can basically move the camera along the Z axis and along the X axis. And notice that the plan is to update the velocity of the camera and not the actual coordinate or location of the camera. And since we want to control smooth and continuous camera movement, the keys that we press on the keyboard should not update the camera position directly. And the reason for this is that the keyboard sends the key press events at a certain rate per second, and if we change the position with this predefined rate, the motion is definitely going to be kind of jerky and rigid and not smooth at all. So also this kind of camera movement won't be consistent across different hardware platforms and different operating systems. So what we're going to do is that we're going to assume that the camera is stationary at the beginning, but then when it starts moving, the motion is controlled by its velocity along the Z and X axis. So the actual speed will be the combination of the two of these velocities. For example, if the user pushes down the W key, it's a signal for the camera to start moving forward, and this can be done like this. Essentially, we're going to maintain the z velocity and the x velocity, the two properties, the two new variables in our main file. And we're going to set it up according to the direction. The positive speed is going to move us forward, the negative speed is going to move us back, and the same along the x-axis for the left and right movements. So we can just go ahead and use the switch construct. Just copy and paste the switch as it is into the keyboard down definition right here, and then basically replace the empty implementation of these cases with these ideas of using the maximum speed for us to move, right? So this will be replaced by this version with the speed modifications. Now also, when the key is released, the camera motion needs to stop, so we can capture this inside the keyboard up event function. So let's just use this switch to set all the velocities to 0 in case when our keys are going up inside the keyboard up implementation. So let's build the project and test it. Okay, this is building fine. Control F5 to run it. So now we can use the W key to move forward. Alright, so we can even move inside the car a little bit and move sideways like this. And of course we can move backwards and we can move sideways on the plane. So you can see that when I press the key and hold it, keeping down, the movement is pretty smooth. So that's the idea of keeping the camera velocity in charge of camera movements and not try to update the position of the camera directly.